Hello, today's story takes place in British Columbia. Located in Western Canada, British Columbia borders the Pacific Ocean to the west and the Rocky Mountains to the east. This region enjoys a temperate climate and has abundant forest resources. The southwestern part of British Columbia is the Vancouver metropolitan area, with its center being the province's largest city, Vancouver. Coquitlam Port is a city within the Vancouver metropolitan area, situated 27 km east of Vancouver at the confluence of the Fraser and Pitt Rivers. This place is home to many long, established Indigenous residents, and today's story unfolds here. On February 5, 2022, a Tuesday, local police received an anonymous tip. The informant reported that the owner of a farm in Coquitlam Port was suspected of storing illegal firearms. Canada enforces very strict gun control regulations, requiring all firearms to be mandatorily registered and imposing stringent conditions for legal gun ownership. Upon receiving the tip, the police immediately sought a search warrant and proceeded to the suspected farm with the intention of conducting a surprise inspection. Upon arriving at the farm, the police found that the owner was not present. They presented the search warrant to a female housekeeper on the farm and then conducted a thorough search. The farm was extensive, covering more than 150,000 square meters, roughly equivalent to 20 football fields, primarily consisting of a pig farm and a slaughterhouse. Next to the pig farm, there was a trailer used as the owner's residence. After some searching, the police indeed found illegal firearms. Additionally, they made another unexpected discovery. The farm owner was not only suspected of storing illegal firearms, but was also implicated in a potential murder case. The police found numerous women's clothes and jewelry on the farm. Given the various sizes of these clothes, it was evident that they did not belong to the same person. The farm owner's girlfriend told the police that the clothes and jewelry were not hers. She also confirmed that the farm owner was unmarried, but frequently brought women to the farm overnight. Among the clothes found, some were heavily stained with blood. Inside the trailer, the police found an asthma inhaler. After testing, the DNA on it matched that of a missing woman from the area. This raised the suspicion that the farm owner might be involved not only in illegal firearms storage, but also in a murder case. With preliminary evidence in hand, the police sought another search warrant and returned to the farm the next day for a thorough investigation to determine if the farm owner was connected to the woman's disappearance. The police discovered a set of restraint tools in a travel bag. Inside the trailer, they found the DNA of 4 other women. Their bodies were located within a 70-meter radius from the trailer. The autopsy results revealed that all 4 female victims had obvious external injuries as their bodies had been mutilated. Aside from one woman who had clearly been shot, the causes of death for the other 3 were not identifiable. The times of death varied, but all were at least more than 3 days old, with 3 out of the 4 women dismembered. The cross sections of the bodies were very clean, resembling the method used for butchering animals. According to the investigation, the farm owner was identified as Robert Pickton. The DNA found on the restraint tools matched his. In the trailer's laundry room, The police found a revolver with a caliber matching the gun used to kill one of the female victims, and the revolver was missing one bullet. In reality, these 4 women were not the only ones who had gone missing in the area. Since the 1980s, East Vancouver has been home to many undocumented immigrants. In stark contrast to the prosperous West Vancouver, East Vancouver is relatively chaotic and impoverished. At that time, prostitution, drugs, and other issues were rampant daily. Some women, after becoming addicted to drugs, were forced to sell their bodies to buy drugs. Recently, Vancouver police received numerous reports of missing prostitutes and drug addicts, most of whom were women. The owner of the asthma inhaler found on the farm was one of those missing women. Due to the discovery of multiple bullets and the bodies of missing women on Robert's farm, he was formally arrested by the police a week later. After his arrest, Robert remained very calm. Since the police had already found firearms on the farm, he admitted to the charge of illegal gun possession. However, he denied any involvement with the missing women. Despite prolonged interrogations, Robert maintained his calm demeanor and did not provide any useful information to the police. Seeing this, the police decided to employ some special measures. They found a police officer who had never met Robert, dressed him in prisoner's clothes, and placed him in the same cell as Robert. They hoped that changing the environment might cause Robert to reveal something. They proceeded with this plan, and unexpectedly, the method turned out to be surprisingly effective. In prison, Robert was no longer as cautious as before and completely relaxed. He regarded the undercover officer posing as a fellow inmate as a friend and excitedly recounted the details of his crimes. Robert confessed that he lured those women to a farm in eastern Vancouver, had relations with them in his trailer, and then killed and disposed of their bodies right on the farm. What Robert said next horrified his cellmate. Robert declared that he had murdered 49 women and was only one away from reaching a total of 50. He expressed regret over his carelessness this time, which led to his capture by the police. Robert was completely unaware that while he enthusiastically detailed his crimes to his cellmate, everything was being recorded on camera. The police had identified Robert as the murder suspect. 8 days after Robert was arrested, the police confirmed the identities of 2 women found on the farm through DNA comparison. Robert was subsequently charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The suspect, Robert Pickton, 53 years old, was the second child in his family. He had an older sister named Linda and a younger brother named David. The Pickton family had a long tradition of pig farming, spanning 4 generations. Robert's great-grandfather had purchased a piece of land next to a mental hospital in Port Coquitlam and established a pig farm. In the late 1950s, the government needed the land to build the low-feed highway, so the farm's land was requisitioned. The Pickton family was forced to relocate. In 1963, when Robert was 14, his parents bought the current farm land for $18,000 USD, equivalent to about 470,000 AUD at the current exchange rate. At that time, the area was still a desolate swamp. The 4 members of Robert's family moved there to live. They built a house, rebuilt the pig farm, and continued their pig farming business. Robert's sister, Linda, did not live with the family. The reason was that their parents believed that a daughter should not live on a pig farm. So they sent Linda to live with a relative in the city of Vancouver. From a young age, Robert had plenty of pork to eat, but his parents had to work very hard every day to handle the tasks on the farm. Since the farm was the family's main source of income, their father prioritized work above all and paid little attention to the children. When busy, he often required Robert and David to help feed the pigs and clean the farm, but did not pay much attention to their personal hygiene. Robert and David frequently went to school in dirty clothes. Over time, they exuded the smell of pig manure, causing their peers to avoid them, even taking detours to steer clear. People also nicknamed them the live pigs. Mocked by his peers, Robert grew to dislike studying, often daydreamed in class, and naturally saw his academic performance decline. After failing in the 2nd grade, Robert was transferred to a special education class. Both at home and at school, Robert received little genuine care and felt extremely lonely. At age 12, Robert raised a calf. He treated it like a pet and often confided in it. Although the calf could not understand, having a companion made Robert feel somewhat consoled. 2 weeks after raising the calf, Robert came home from school and couldn't find it. He was extremely worried and asked his mother if she had seen it. His mother told him to check the barn. There, Robert discovered the calf had been slaughtered. He was deeply saddened. From then on, Robert never raised another pet. When Robert was 14, coinciding with his family's move to the current farm, he dropped out of school and took a job as a slaughterhouse worker at a local pork shop. He worked there for 7 years, then at age 21, he quit and returned home to help manage the pig farm. 8 years after returning to the farm, Robert's father passed away due to illness. A year later, his mother also died. The 3 siblings discussed their inheritance. Linda inherited part of the estate and shares in the farm. David inherited the house and part of the farm shares. Neither of them liked the farm, considering it very dirty and smelly. Since Robert had lived on the farm from a young age, he was given the responsibility of managing the farm and the pigs. Robert did not have a house of his own, so he lived in a trailer next to the farm. With the economic development of Port Coquitlam, the value of the farm increased. By 1994, when Robert was 45, the farm was valued at 7.2 million Canadian dollars, approximately 132 billion, ZWing at the current exchange rate, 400 times its original value. That autumn, a portion of the farm's land was sold to a villa development company for 1.7 million Canadian dollars. The same year, the city government of Coquitlam bought another part of the farm for 1.2 million Canadian dollars to build a park. The following year, the city government again purchased another section of the farm for 2.3 million Canadian dollars to build Blackburn Elementary School. Since all 3 siblings owned shares in the farm, the proceeds from the land sales were divided equally among them, according to their shareholding percentages. This windfall provided David with a significant amount of money. He moved out of the farm and settled alone in Bay, 2 kilometers away. Although David had moved, he retained ownership of the house. After David left, Robert continued living in his trailer as before. After David moved out, Robert lived alone on the expansive farm. He managed the farm by himself, raising piglets to maturity, slaughtering them, and taking their meat to market. Although the farm was equipped with conventional slaughtering tools, it couldn't handle pig innards. Robert frequently drove these innards to a waste treatment plant located 30 kilometers away in downtown Vancouver. In eastern Vancouver, Robert witnessed a completely different world. At night, the streets were aglow with colorful lights, and numerous flamboyantly dressed women stood on the streets soliciting customers. They were all prostitutes making a living by selling themselves. Robert came in contact with some of these women. He realized that they were often addicts, willing to follow him for money and drugs. From then on, Robert often visited eastern Vancouver to lure these women back to his farm. 1 year after David left the farm, he and Robert registered to establish a non-profit charitable organization called the Biggie Paulette Good Time Society. The organization purportedly represented service organizations, sports organizations, and other valued groups, coordinating and managing special events such as dance performances and cultural exhibitions. In reality, the organization often hosted parties on their farm, inviting people to join and providing free drinks and roasted pork for attendees. However, these parties were not merely charitable activities. Their main purpose was to attract prostitutes. By offering free food, these parties attracted a large number of attendees, estimated to be around 2,000 to 3,000 people, including many members of the Hells Angels gang. Hells Angels is an infamous motorcycle club operating globally and considered by the police to be a criminal organization. Nevertheless, the charitable organization did not operate for long afterward. Robert ceased using this method to find prostitutes and instead began luring women from eastern Vancouver to his home. In fact, this was not Robert's first run in with the law. In 1997, at the age of 48, Robert was charged with attempted murder. That year, a woman named Wendy met Robert in eastern Vancouver. Robert used money and drugs to lure Wendy. Wendy agreed to follow Robert to the farm. However, she was unaware that Robert had a particular penchant for BDSM, sadomasochistic sexual acts. Robert often demanded that women play the role of the mistreated while he would use violence or tools to torture them. Among the items the police found on the farm was a bondage kit. After arriving at the trailer on the farm, Robert handcuffed Wendy. Wendy was completely unaware of this scenario. She realized that Robert was a pervert and that continuing to stay might harm her. Therefore, she resolutely refused Robert's demands and prepared to leave. Seeing this, Robert immediately blocked Wendy. Wendy spotted a knife on the table beside her. In self-defense, she grabbed the knife and stabbed at Robert. However, due to the physical disparity, Robert quickly seized the knife back. During the struggle, with Robert wounded and bleeding profusely, Wendy managed to escape to the road. Just then, a passing car stopped when Wendy screamed for help. The kind driver took her away from the farm. During the confrontation, both Wendy and Robert sustained injuries from the knife. Subsequently, both were taken to the same hospital for treatment. Fortunately, Wendy promptly informed the police. When they arrived at the hospital, the police found a pair of handcuffs in Robert's jacket pocket. The key to these handcuffs could unlock the ones on Wendy's wrists. They confiscated the clothes and rubber boots Robert was wearing that night as evidence. Robert was arrested and charged with attempted murder and later released on a bail of 2,000 Canadian dollars. Because Wendy was a prostitute and heavily addicted to drugs, her testimony was questioned regarding its reliability, and Robert was not punished by law for this incident. Clearly, women like Wendy face dangers not only of violence, but also threats to their own lives. At the end of the 20th century, many women in East Vancouver continuously went missing. However, because most of these women were either prostitutes or drug addicts, belonging to the lower rungs of society, they received little attention. Furthermore, due to their constant movement, no one knew whether they were truly missing or had simply moved to another location to work. However, as the number of missing women increased with noticeable similarities, the Vancouver police began to realize that these were not random cases. It was possible that a serial killer was targeting these women. A man named Bill reported to the police that he had worked at Robert's farm. He noted that the farm was a creepy place. Bill felt that Robert was a quiet and strange individual who frequently brought unfamiliar women home overnight. Sometimes, Robert's peculiar actions made others suspect that he was using drugs. Bill believed Robert was a murderer and could be involved in the recent disappearances of many women. Upon receiving this lead, the police secretly monitored Robert. Instead of acting hastily, they considered that Robert frequently visited the red light district in East Vancouver. This made him a potential suspect. However, they still did not have enough evidence. After some time investigating, the missing persons case had not progressed. 2 years after Wendy's incident, the Vancouver police announced a reward of 100,000 Canadian dollars, approximately 1.8 billion VND at the current exchange rate, for any information related to the case. However, during this period, many women in Vancouver continued to go missing. Some police officers believed these were not simply disappearance cases. One officer proposed a bold theory. This was a serial murder case, meaning the perpetrator might still be continuing their crimes. The police started investigating from the prostitutes working in Vancouver's red light district. During the investigation, a prostitute immediately recognized Robert in a photo and mentioned that Robert had approached her a few days earlier. The woman said that when she hesitated, Robert suddenly became aggressive and threatening. "If you dare refuse me, I will beat you." The smile on Robert's face when he said this made the woman shudder with fear. She described Robert's smile as frightful, as if he wanted to cruelly devour her, making it unforgettable. However, this testimony was still not enough to prove Robert's involvement in the disappearances of the women. The police needed more evidence. 2 months after the police announced the reward, the famous American television show America's Most Wanted aired a segment on the missing women case in Canada. The case garnered widespread public attention. Under public pressure, the reward was raised from 100,000 Canadian dollars to 200,000 Canadian dollars, approximately 3.6 billion VND at the current exchange rate. With such a large reward on offer, the police received a report suggesting there was a fridge filled with human meat at Robert's farm. They went to the farm to question Robert, but were only able to stand at the gate, as Robert refused them entry. Without a search warrant, they could not go inside to inspect. 2 years later, with the number of missing women continuing to rise, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and Vancouver Police cooperated to form a task force, specifically to investigate the women's disappearances. The police still suspected Robert, but could not find a valid reason to search his farm. 5 months after the task force was established, the police received a report alleging Robert's possession of illegal firearms on his farm. Although this report was not directly related to the women's disappearance cases, the police saw it as a good opportunity to search Robert's farm. On February 5, 2002, the police unexpectedly raided the farm to conduct a search. As anticipated, they not only found illegal firearms, but also discovered many belongings and bodies of missing women. This raid unveiled the largest serial murder case in Canadian history. 4 months after Robert was arrested, the police once again went to the farm to conduct a large-scale search. They hoped to find more evidence of the victims. Given the long duration of the case, the victims' bodies could have decomposed, turned into bones, or been eaten by animals on the farm. There were even rumors that Robert had dismembered the victims' bodies, grinding and mixing with farm-raised pork to sell outside. The residents of Coquitlam Port were extremely appalled upon hearing these rumors. The police deployed numerous heavy equipment to the scene, including 2 conveyor belts each 15 meters long, to ensure every corner of the farm was thoroughly searched. Due to the vast area of the farm, the search operation faced significant difficulties and consumed a lot of time. It took 1.5 years for the police to complete the search. They collected 60,000 in samples on site and discovered about 811 unidentified DNAs, including both males and females. The investigation cost 7 million Canadian dollars, roughly 129 billion VND at the current exchange rate. Over 4 years of searching, police gradually identified more victims and continued to add charges against Robert. The police also looked into Wendy's case that happened 5 years prior. They met Wendy again to take her statement and collected the en caso clothing that Robert wore that night, which was still stored at the police station. Subsequently, they found the DNA of 2 missing women on Robert's clothing. After his arrest, the number of severe murder charges Robert faced soared to 27. In January 2006, 4 years after his arrest, Robert was charged with murdering 27 women. The trial was brought to the Supreme Court of British Columbia. In court, Robert pleaded not guilty. 2 months later, due to insufficient evidence, prosecutors dropped 1 charge, reducing Robert's charges to 26. After more than half a year of preliminary hearings, based on the evidence presented by both sides for each charge, the judge divided the 26 charges into 2 groups, one group of 6 charges and another of 20 charges. Due to a government-imposed media ban on the case, some details were not fully disclosed. The judge explained that trying 26 charges simultaneously would impose an enormous workload on the jury, could extend the trial for more than 2 years, and increase the likelihood of a miscarriage of justice. Since the first 6 charges had significantly different evidence compared to the other 20, the court decided to try these 6 charges first. A year later, the trial for the first 6 charges officially began, the media ban on the case was lifted, and some details of the case were made public. In court, the prosecutor described the state of some female victims found. One woman's body was discarded in a garbage bag, and her blood-stained clothes were found in a trailer. The bones and teeth of another woman were found in the slaughterhouse, possibly left there by Robert after disposing of the body. Part of another woman's body was found in a garbage bin at the slaughterhouse. These details indicated Robert's brutal methods of killing. The police also found a loaded .22 caliber revolver at Robert's farm with a fake penis attached to the barrel. The gun had been fired once. Robert claimed he used the fake penis as a silencer when stealthily shooting. Additionally, the police found several boxes of handgun ammunition, 2 hand saws, night vision goggles, and sex stimulants. During the trial, a total of 128 witnesses testified. Among them was a woman named Lynn, who once worked at Robert's farm. She testified that one day, Robert drove her to Vancouver. Later, a stranger woman got into the car, and on the way back to the farm, Robert bought drugs and shared them with the woman. When they returned to the farm, Lynn went to her room, and the stranger followed Robert and the trailer. At midnight, Lynn woke up and noticed the lights in the slaughterhouse were still on. She clearly remembered turning off the lights in the evening, so she went to check. Unexpectedly, Lynn witnessed a horrifying scene that would haunt her for life. Robert was standing with his back to the slaughterhouse door, bending over working on something. Then, Lynn saw the stranger woman's body hanging on a hook on the wall, bleeding profusely. Fearing Robert's retaliation and killing her, Lynn did not dare report to the police. After nearly 45 days of trial, the jury declared Robert not guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder, but guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder. The Supreme Court of British Columbia sentenced Robert, without the possibility of parole, for 25 years, the maximum penalty for second-degree murder. After the trial, both sides disagreed with the verdict and appealed. A year and a half later, the Court of Appeal of British Columbia ruled on the defendant's appeal, dismissing it and upholding the sentence. Regarding the prosecution's appeal, the appellate court found some errors during the preliminary trial, such as incorrectly excluding some evidence and dividing the 26 charges into 2 groups. However, the findings and sanctions of the appellate court were suspended, so the preliminary trial results were not overturned. One day after the appellate court issued its ruling, the defendant did not agree with the decision and continued to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada. A year later, the Supreme Court of Canada rejected the defendant's appeal and upheld the original verdict. Additionally, Robert Pickton still has 20 other murder charges pending trial. However, immediately after the Supreme Court of Canada issued its ruling, judicial officials in the province of British Columbia announced that they would not prosecute Robert further, as additional sentences would not result in harsher punishment for him. Moreover, prosecuting the remaining 20 charges would consume significant resources and finances. The British Columbia government announced that the cost of investigating and prosecuting the case had reached 102 million Canadian dollars, approximately 1.8 trillion VND at current exchange rates. At this point, the investigation into the cases related to Robert Pickton officially came to a close. In May 2013, the children of the victims filed a civil lawsuit against the Vancouver Police and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, accusing them of failing to protect the victims. A year later, both sides reached a settlement, with each victim's child receiving 50,000 Canadian dollars in compensation, around 923 million VND at current exchange rates, but the police were not held responsible. In 2016, 9 years after Robert was sentenced, a book claiming to be Robert's autobiography was published. Robert had given his manuscript to a fellow inmate, who then sent the manuscript to Michael Shilagoak, a retired construction worker, for editing and publication. The book caused much controversy immediately upon its release, and was quickly taken out of circulation. As of now, Robert is 75 years old, has spent 17 years in prison, and will continue to live the rest of his life behind bars. The case of Robert Pickton has concluded, but the pain and trauma he left behind for the victims, families, and Canadian society remain intact. The story of the pig farm butcher has become a painful reminder of the existence of evil, society's indifference toward the less fortunate, and the importance of justice, even if it comes belatedly. While Robert Pickton pays for his heinous crimes behind bars, somewhere, the souls of the unfortunate women still yearn for liberation. They are anonymous victims, forgotten by society, cruelly stripped of their lives. Their story is a call for empathy, compassion, and the responsibility of each individual in creating a fairer and safer society for everyone, regardless of circumstance or status. The case is a hard-to-heal scar in Canada's history, but it also serves as motivation for the country to continue improving its legal system, raising community awareness, and protecting the vulnerable from cold-blooded criminals like Robert Pickton. Today's video ends here, and we look forward to seeing you in future videos. Goodbye. Please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any exciting videos.